Hello, this is Angela Legh, and I am so honored to have Carole and Tanya here. They have a fabulous process that we're all gonna play with today, and I call it future casting. Wait until you see what it is. So, Tanya, tell me a little bit about who you are.
Thank you for this opportunity, Angela. My name is Tanya, and I'm living in Canada, on the west coast of Vancouver. And my friend Carole and I have been friends for over 40 years. So we've been
Wow.
playing together for over 40 years of our lives. And our lives have been in parallel lines most of the time, some crossovers. And right now, we're feeling very connected, and we feel very honored to be able to bring this playful, infinite possibilities, do you remember when moments. So, a little bit about me: I'm a stand up comedian. I do stand up for mental health, and I also am a published author and a mother of three and a grandmother of two. And so recently, Carole and I became Infinite Possibilities facilitators with Mike Dooley, and we are setting out onto our new path of infinite possibilities. And here we are, amazingly attracted this amazing opportunity to be here with Angela and her audience. Thank you for having us today. And the infinite possibilities, and you called it future casting. It really is about going into the future and allowing ourselves to live as if it is we're already experiencing it. So we get together on Monday to Friday mornings at 7 a.m. PST time. We do half an hour of manifesting with whoever shows up in the room, and then Carole finishes and completes that hour with a group Reiki session. So we do a little playing, and then we do a little grounding, and then we start our days. It's been incredibly amazing. We've been doing that for 3 weeks now. The people that are showing up, to see the lights come on and the playful return, because I think quite often when we grow up, we are convinced that we should stop being playful. And so
Oh, no.
exactly. And do you remember when moments are about being playful and being joyful and being in the bliss as if it's already occurring.
Thank you. And Carole, why don't you take a moment to tell us who you are?
Amazing. Thank you so much, Angela. It's such a pleasure to be here this morning. My name's Carole. I live on the glorious Sunshine Coast of British Columbia. I feel so blessed to live on the lands of the Squamish people and the Shishak Nation. I actually I have a full-time job with an archaeology firm here on the Sunshine Coast. So that's what I do for my full-time job. It's an amazing experience. As Tanya has said, we're both lifelong learners. We've been in this process of learning about ourselves and pulling back the layers of who we are to understand, who are we in this massive universe? And in all of the learning that we've done, this infinite possibilities that we did just a little while ago really kind of pulled it all together for us. In addition to the work that we've both done, the three of us have done with Cheryl Brewster, it's been an incredible journey of self-discovery. I'm so pleased to be here, and we're really excited about sharing this. Do you remember when with your audience, Angela? Thank you.
Thank you both. And I love that you bring playfulness into something that can be, well, difficult, because when we are experiencing an circumstance in our life that we would really rather not have, a lot of times we worry about it, we think about it, we focus on it. And all of those things actually cause those circumstances to stay stuck.
Perpetuates it. Exactly.
Yeah. And so this whole process of being playful and future casting is brilliant. So I'm going to turn it over to you two and let you start that process.
Amazing.
Sounds great. I love that term, future casting. I think that's really brilliant, and it fits this really well. Yeah. So the idea.
Fishing.
What's that, Tanya?
It reminds me of fishing, right? We're future casting.
Right.
Fishing for those dreams.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So the idea here is to think about something that you would like to see different than what's in your life now. It could be a big dream, a deepest desire. It could be a small goal. It could be something that's a little bit more manageable, like, oh, maybe there's a big interview today. It could be just a here and now thing. We like to think big picture, so we've been really bringing in some big energy and some of our deepest dreams and desires. Tanya, do you want to take it from here?
Yeah. So maybe in order to give people a really good idea of what it is, we'll just start playing if that's okay.
Okay.
And,
I love it.
it's the practice of belief, right? So when we believe, we can achieve. And so it's the idea of, let me, for instance, oh my gosh, do you ladies remember? Do you remember when the magic started flowing very easily for all of us? Do you remember when all of a sudden, all of those voices that had been telling us maybe that we couldn't do something switched into the positive and became our allies? And when we woke up every morning, it was easy because our voices were telling us, you can do this. You've got
Yeah.
this. It's amazing. Wait until you see the opportunities that I have for you today.
Yes, I remember that. I remember this. It was amazing. It was like these light bulbs went on, like the floodgates opened with ideas and connections and people. We were just immediately inspired to live our best lives and to get out of our own way. It was like magic.
I, so magical because it's like, you know, before we were all just so tightened up and worrying and thinking over, how can I make something happen? And then we allowed the magic, and the magic came in, and it was brilliant. And I'm so excited because there are opportunities that have just shown up since we allowed our magic.
People, places, and things just randomly appeared, aligning entirely with the goals that we've been setting. It is just that simple.
I totally remember. I remember when that restricted, hard, chaotic feeling started to lift. And then the expansion started to happen. And as I allowed the expansion to happen, the magic started happening even more frequently. All of a sudden, that person that I hadn't heard from called me up. Magically, amazing. Do you remember when I got that phone call and I wasn't expecting it? And all of a sudden, all of these amazing opportunities, they were like, you know what? We want you to come to Belgium and speak about these infinite possibilities. Do you remember when that
I totally remember that. Oh my gosh.
So magical.
It was so incredible.
Simply amazing.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
This is what we do, is we try to stay in this energy and being in that future energy, bringing that into now. It isn't something outside of us. And I think that's the biggest lie, is that we're always in the middle of our story. We
Yeah.
are. And as an
And it
author,
comes from us. It's like the energies are part of us. And as we allow the energy in, we are actually building our future and building our life. And so I just think this is such a brilliant process. And it doesn't have to be 3 people. It doesn't have to be a whole group. You could do it yourself in the mirror.
For sure.
my husband actually texted me from the road the other day with his own "Do you remember when?" He's like, this is what I've been saying to myself all morning. And the manifesting that he's been doing around that specific thing has actually been mind-blowing. It's an issue, a health condition that he's been dealing with for about 40 years that is actually just falling away. Everything is it's disintegrating. It's just disappearing. It's magic.
It is magical. And I just thank you both for bringing this into my realm because I had never heard of it before I spoke to you guys last week. And I just, it is such a powerful tool. And it's
Mm-hmm.
so simple
It really
because
is.
you don't have to map out what you're going to say. You just allow it to flow through. Oh, I remember when I was so tight and bound up, and then I allowed the energy and it just all flowed. And just let the words come to you, and
Absolutely.
it's
Yeah.
a brilliant way of manifesting what you want in the world.
Well, it's the
It's so easy.
practice, right?
Yeah.
It's the practice. And so I'm remembering the point in time when I thought this had to be hard. I decided that it had to be hard, that I wasn't there yet, that I hadn't earned the right, that I didn't know enough, that I wasn't smart enough. And so I was head down, going through the muck, knowing that I eventually would get there. Where there is beyond me because we're always only in the actual now moment, right? So when I
True.
play as if that now moment is the wildest dreams that I could ever imagine, when I play in that energy, the universe actually hears that message. And that's why it's important, Angela, what you just said, right? Allowing the words to come as they do, knowing that we can't really get it wrong. And as we
Mhm.
learn how to build that muscle, because that's what it is, right? That it gets stronger and stronger.
Mhm.
And as it gets stronger, that vibration that's going out from us is being returned from the universe. And so, not to get specific, right? I'm not going to say next Tuesday, I would like $711 to land in my bank account. It's do you remember? Do you remember when my bank account just all of a sudden exploded and started expanding right before my very eyes, and I didn't even know where any of the money was coming from? Do you remember that?
I remember that, and the same thing happened with me. I had
Right.
spent so much time worrying and just like, "Oh my gosh, where is the money gonna come from?" And then it just like things just shifted immediately. It was like, boom, magical.
Magical.
It allows us to refocus on what we want, right? It kind of changes the firing that's going on in the brain. Instead of focusing on all those things that aren't working, all of that murky that we get into in our own heads, allowing us to reconnect with our heart, aligning with what really matters, and using almost it's like the law of attraction. The universe is conspiring to support us in those things that we're really heart-centered about. And that's why it's so magic.
And it's so beautiful because, you know, it is a lot of spiritual people talk about, you get what you focus on. And
Yes.
the focus, it's so hard when you have things that you don't want in your life. It's so hard not to focus on those things. And this process allows you to bypass your mind and just let the focus be on what you want. If you can do this process, if you're in a circumstance you hate, do this process because it will shift.
Yeah, the energy, you can feel it, right? So when we're lamenting
Absolutely.
the past or lamenting, it was just Thanksgiving for us in Canada yesterday over this past weekend, right? So some people coming into Thanksgiving and Christmas might be a little bit constricted about being with their family. There's dynamics that happen there, right? So there's some restriction that happens in the body when we're maybe fearful of what may happen. But what if we started playing with the do you remember when our family got together and it was just easy? Do you
And
remember
it was
when there was
beautiful.
so much harmony and that we got to break bread together and that everyone left joyful and happy in their hearts? Do you
Mhm.
remember that?
Yeah.
Yeah. And how we can change the story because
Yes.
And
we are
yes,
constantly repeating what we think it is because we have evidence from our past or history that says that that's the way that it's going to be. But what if it could be different? What if
it's
that's possible?
also Yeah, and it's also important to recognize that when you go into a family atmosphere, just pay attention because most people drop right into their roles that they always had
Yeah.
in that family. And a
Mhm.
role is just like a mask, a label we put on
Mhm.
ourselves.
Mhm.
We don't have to be in that role, and it's always a choice.
Yeah.
We can
Always.
say, you know, I am no longer the mess up kid that role that I played when I was young. And I can choose to go into this as a mature, emotionally mature adult. And I
Mhm.
don't have to take on that role. And then you do future casting and whew, big changes.
Yeah. One of
Yeah,
our
and you
favorite,
don't even have to believe it 100%, right? It's the
it is a,
possibility, it's
yeah,
stepping into the possibility of that happening. Because we don't get to control what the outcome is, because ultimately, although the universe is conspiring to support us, it may bring it about in a completely different way than we have in mind, right? Quite often, have you ever been taken out of left field and go, well, that wasn't what I was expecting? But ultimately,
Yes.
the universe did know that it was ultimately the best thing for our highest good.
Well, and what we think we want isn't necessarily aligned with our highest good.
this is true.
So when my house burned down in a
Mhm.
wildfire,
Mhm.
I was like, oh my gosh, this is, I don't
Yes.
even know what to do. But in retrospect, I see the beauty of that
Mhm.
because all that bound up energy in my possessions, in my
Mm.
just the whole house, all that stuff keeps you really right where you are. And
Mhm.
when the fire happened, all that energy was released. And all of a sudden, I could look at my life in a new way. And I asked questions like, is this the life I want to live for the rest of my life? It
Mhm.
was no. And
Mhm.
so I made significant changes that led me to where I am now. You're
That's
you're
amazing. That's amazing awareness, Angela. That is amazing. And I'm really sorry that, I'm sure initially that shock and loss
oh,
of that. I mean, the terror, all of the pieces that must have gone into that is a lot. I've recently gone through this detachment myself. I had my identity stolen. I had some
mm,
social media completely wiped out and deleted, including our E Squared Productions page on Facebook, which we can't get back now.
Mm.
It was interesting. It was in the middle of that. I was so stuck in my head, and I forgot about this tool. I
mhm.
forgot about this tool until I started talking to people about it and then, using that to pull me out of it. And I've since been able to let go of other things the very same way, detaching from all of this stuff and realizing that really my overall overarching alignment is we are here to raise the vibration of humanity
Mm.
and to amplify love in the world.
Yeah.
And when I focus on that and we remember those things, everything just falls into place, and it doesn't matter where and what story I'm in the middle of. I always know I'm right smack dab in the middle of where I'm supposed to be.
And with future casting, you are creating the story of the life you want.
Mhm.
Yeah, you're writing it, co-creation at
Yeah,
its best.
beautiful.
And like you said, Angela, there are lots of thought leaders, right? There's all kinds of people talking about this. This isn't new information. However, there was something said in the Mike Dooley Infinite Possibilities certification course that we took about 3 or 4 weeks ago now that just hit me. It was like, I don't need to wait anymore. I don't know what I was waiting for. It was like permission to actually do life the way that I can see other people doing it, but just not giving myself the permission to actually dance and live in that energy. And when that
Mm,
switch happened for me, it was like all of a sudden what he said was start something, take
mhm,
action in a direction. Now, I started this, do you remember when, in the morning with a small group of women that I had just graduated school from. to become a therapist. And it was magic. And then at the end of that week, one of them said, "Oh, I can't come on Friday, but I'm really looking forward to next week." And it was sort of, it took me a bit back because I was like, "Oh, I wasn't expecting to do this again," but it felt right to say yes to that, right? And then what happened was all other people started filtering in because we started putting the word out, and people are telling their people about that. Now, watching people on the screen turn their lights on and seeing it, I can see the effect of that. And then them taking those ripple effects into their own families. And now they're doing, "Do you remember when at the dinner table?" And "Do you remember when in the car?" And even me, who, had decided that my boyfriend probably isn't for this work, isn't all that spiritual, maybe isn't capable of this. When I am off track in the last couple of weeks, he goes, "What is that thing you say? I don't remember what it is, but how do you do that? How do you start that?" And so even he, who I believed maybe wasn't capable, and those are my limiting beliefs about him, all of the sudden, when he started being inspired by me, was able to bring me back on track when I'm off. It becomes, there's levity in the situation where I don't feel like I'm being scolded. I feel like I'm being uplifted. And all of the sudden, I have a perfect example of this. So we were boating this weekend, and there was stuff going on at the boat launch when we were trying to get our boat out. It took an hour for us to get our boat out. And there was a lot of moving parts and by the time that we actually got the boat out, I was exasperated, and I was actually quite irritated and angry. And although I was conscious that I didn't want to be in that state, it was like consuming. And it was him and I playing back and forth. I'm like, I know I need to let this go. And it was a decision I had to make about 11 or 12 times, because it wasn't just a one and done. It was like, okay, so T, what do you want from this situation? Right? I want to feel the joy that I was just on the lake, and I want to feel this joy that I was just experiencing.
Yeah.
And I was taken hostage by the situation. Now, again, I was allowing all of that to happen, but it wasn't until I decided that I could just let it go. But it was a process of that, right? "Oh, do you remember when I let this go?" And I had to do it several times, but all of a sudden, about 20 minutes later, we're now in that joyful state again. We're enjoying each other's company, and we're putting the boat back in the water so that we can go and have a campfire and spend the night in wilderness. So it was magical. And in the past, that experience at the boat launch would have stayed with me, and I would have let it consume my day. And then it would have showed up in the traffic going home. Then it would show up like, those things become amplified as well when we get stuck in that loop of, "Oh, it's not working. Why is it not working? I want it to work," when we're in resistance to what is actually happening, right? And it's the consciousness of deciding, right, I don't actually want to be in that energy. And how do I get out of it? And it's not about bypassing the feeling. It's about working through the feeling so that I can get to that other place that the state that I want to be in, which is the joy and the grace and the kindness and the compassion. But it's a practice.
And it's interesting because, I'm a huge proponent about feeling feelings. This isn't a process to stop you from feeling. It's a process where you choose what you wish to feel. And that is a difference. Anytime you have energy about trying to stop what you're feeling, you are prolonging the feeling.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Being stuck in that resistance as opposed to the acceptance of what is. If something is in front of us that we don't like, it doesn't mean that we deserve it. It doesn't mean that it's our fault. It just means that that's what's in front of us. And so the sooner we can move into a place of acceptance as opposed to that resistance, because when we start saying, no, this can't be real. This isn't what's in front of me. This is where this prolonging and this, it's like a magnet. It's kind of like a magnet.
It is like a magnet. What I teach is that thoughts and emotions are electromagnetic. So you have to disconnect the thoughts and allow the emotion. And through that process, then the energy flows.
Amazing.
It's in the surrender, right?
It is
The
in the silence.
surrendering to what is in the moment. And I am a big feeler as well, and a big supporter of feeling feelings. My son actually has "I feel it to heal it" tattooed across his body. Uh, bless him. And it really stands to reason that when we stop those feelings or we bypass those feelings, we eventually have to go back and feel them anyway, right? Or
It'll
we
just keep
prolong
showing
that.
up.
Right.
Yeah, if you guys have read The Body Never Lies by
Mm,
Alice Miller, there's a lot of scientific evidence that says, especially traumatized children,
yes.
they cannot truly express what they're feeling when, a parent or someone is traumatizing them. So these feelings get buried.
Yes.
If at some point in time the person does not express those feelings, they will actually, the energy will change the cellular structure.
Mhm.
And that's how dis-ease comes in.
Yes. Yeah.
The other aspect is that the emotions will either turn inward, and that's how disease is made, or they will turn outward. And we all know people who lash out at other people,
Yeah.
and that's a projection of their inner turmoil onto someone else. So, yeah,
Yeah,
thank
and
you.
so, like on that note, right? Do you remember when we allowed ourselves to start feeling some of those feelings from the smaller, younger versions of ourselves and started
Mm,
releasing those things because we were making space for new things to come in? Do you
it's so
remember?
beautiful. I remember that. It was brilliant.
Yeah.
And not only did it make space, but it lessened how triggered we would be when we walked through the circumstances of life. What a beautiful process.
Mhm,
Mhm.
mhm.
Do you remember that time that Angela invited Tanya and Carole, E Square Productions, to talk about the whole "Do you remember" thing, and how all of the people who watched this started to take this into their own lives, and this concept grew, and by default, the love in the world was amplified.
Mm.
And we have, through this process, we are raising the vibration of humanity. This is such a gift, Angela. Such a gift for you to bring us in so that we can share this idea with all of your viewers and all of our viewers. It's incredible.
And thank you, because I'm all about how do we help humanity to get out of their own way.
Yes.
And this process is, I love the simplicity and the ease of this
Mhm.
process. It's beautiful.
And
Thank
everybody can use it, and it's free.
I know.
Right?
It is
It's
accessible by all people all the time.
it's
And so
And
all we need to do is say yes.
yeah,
Yes to more
and
of what we want.
parents can use this with their kids
Mhm.
yes, kids
to
will
help.
actually show us the way.
Mhm.
Yes.
Yeah, amazing.
Well,
Yeah, do you remember? Oh my gosh, do you remember when all of the sudden we started teaching this to smaller and younger children
Mhm.
and they started their day by meditating and being peaceful in their bodies,
Yeah,
what caused peace in their classrooms, which caused peace in their homes and their communities, which caused more peace and harmony in the whole
in the
world.
world.
the
Mm.
whole world.
Do you
I
remember?
remember that. Oh, and the beauty of it. Oh gosh.
And I remember that when they learn this at ages 3 and 5 and 7 and 8 and 9, that they take this through their entire life, which over time just changes the whole flavor of this world. It's so incredible.
Really
Beautiful.
is. Yeah.
I just want to thank you both for bringing this
Mhm.
process, for what you do in the world. And I just thank you. We may come back again and do something again,
I
because
would love
this is
that.
such a wonderful process. But we're saying bye-bye now.
Yeah.
Thanks,
Goodbye.
everyone.
Thank you so much for watching and listening. We appreciate it.